20s, Vince had gained a reputation as a silent enforcer, someone who could be trusted to get the job done without leaving a trace. He didn't have the flash of other mobsters, nor did he seek the spotlight. Instead, Vince was known for his calm demeanor and his meticulous planning. He carried out hits with military precision, blending into the shadows, always a step ahead of the law. For over 15 years, Vince worked for some of the most powerful crime families in New York and beyond. He was the man you called when you wanted someone silenced. Over 24 murders are attributed to him, but no one ever caught him in the act. His work was clean, his disappearances were seamless, and for a time it seemed like no one would ever catch him. But in 1987, something changed. A botched hit, an operation that went wrong, forced Vince to go underground. It was too risky for him to stay, and so he vanished, leaving behind the life of crime that had made him infamous. What followed was one of the most incredible disappearances in criminal history. Vince Carano didn't flee to another country or hide in some foreign city. Instead, he quietly settled in a small town in Ohio, where he lived under the alias of Victor Clemente. For the next 37 years, Vince, or Victor as he was now known, lived the life of a retiree. To his neighbors, he was just another quiet old man. He kept to himself, tending to his garden, walking his dog, and never raising suspicion. He even had a few friends, people who saw him as nothing more than a widowed grandfather. He had rebuilt his life, his past seemingly buried. He stayed away from the criminal world, and for all intents and purposes, it appeared he had truly left his former life behind. But as the years passed, the past has a way of catching up with you, no matter how hard you try to outrun it. In March 2024, Vince went to a local doctor's office for a routine checkup. He sat quietly in the waiting room, unaware that a fellow patient was about to recognize him. The patient, a true crime enthusiast who had once seen Vince's face in a documentary about mobsters, immediately realized who he was. That recognition, that moment of clarity, would change everything. The patient tipped off the authorities, and soon, the man who had once been a ghost was no longer invisible. Federal agents, having long assumed Vince was either dead or in hiding somewhere far away, were stunned when they raided his home and found him living a peaceful life, free of any hint of his violent past. Inside the home, agents uncovered a wealth of evidence linking Vince to organized crime: old weapons, coded ledgers, and photographs from his days as a hitman with known mobsters. After nearly 4 decades of evading justice, Vince Carano's past had finally caught up to him. As the investigation into Vince's life deepened, more and more details began to surface. The FBI had long known about his activities, but without concrete evidence, they had been unable to bring him down. Now, with the evidence in hand, they pieced together his involvement in some of the most notorious hits in mob history. To the outside world, he had been a harmless old man living in suburbia. But to those in the criminal underworld, Vince was still a legend. His arrest sent shockwaves through the mafia, and his exposure shook the foundation of the criminal network he had once been a part of. While awaiting trial, however, rumors began to swirl. It was said that a contract had been placed on Vince's head, a final act of retribution for the lives he had taken. In July 2024, just a few months after his arrest, Vince was found dead in his prison cell. Officially, his death was ruled a heart attack, but many believed there was more to it. Some speculated that the mob had sent someone to silence him once and for all, closing the chapter on a man who had evaded justice for so long. Vince Carano's death marked the end of a notorious chapter in the history of organized crime. He had lived most of his life in the shadows, but the truth about his past was now out in the open. His quiet retirement in Ohio had been nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion, a final, failed attempt to bury the man he had once been. In the end, justice had caught up to him, but not before he had spent decades hiding in plain sight. Vince Carano's life was one of silence, precision, and deception. He lived as a ghost, and in the end, he died as one too. His legacy serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of living a double life, of how the past can haunt you, no matter how far you run. Vince may have spent years trying to outrun justice, but in the end, no one truly escapes their past.